In the first scene of the movie, we saw a man who keeps running for safety. Then we see his two babies, and it looks like he's a single father. After that, the present moment shows us the children grown up and living with their father. They are forced to return home at sunset and take shelter there because there is a danger threatening them at night. They sit around the table praying, then they eat together. As they are busy, scary creatures outside the house start banging and scratching at the door. They hold the door tight from the back until the creatures leave. The next day, some cockroaches are found behind the house door, indicating that these scary creatures have transformed into large and frightening creatures. In the next scene, Paul talks to his son Joseph, who asks, "Can we ever find salvation from this life?" Paul replies, "I'm sure there are many heroes out there who will come one day and rescue us. We just need to be patient and hopeful." As they spoke, Paul skillfully fixes a motor engine, surprising Joseph. Together they head out, spinning a wheel, embracing the hope for a brighter future. When Paul returns home, he tells his older son Thomas to take care of his younger brother and watch out for him. They both get into a car together, and Thomas says he needs to visit the Rose family and wait for him there until he returns. He meets with Mrs. Rose and her husband and helps them with farm work. Then he talks to their daughter Charlotte, who asks him to walk together. Meanwhile, Joseph returns home and goes to the basement to get some things, where he encounters cockroaches and harmful insects. Charlotte enjoys Thomas's company, and they play a funny game where they have to narrate events happening in the world in just 20 seconds. This reveals Charlotte has developed feelings for Thomas. Before leaving, Charlotte asks Thomas to stay with her for 20 seconds, counting down while hugging him and expressing her love for him. After they part ways, Thomas hastens to return. At the appointed hour, Joseph waits for his brother but doesn't see him. At that moment, it is shown that Thomas falls into a relatively large pit in the middle of the forest. Near sundown, Father learns from Joseph that Thomas is missing. Joseph suggests something might have happened to him. The father tells Joseph to stay home, lock the door, and guard the house until they return. Thomas stands alone in the darkness of the night, gazing up the ravine, feeling desolate as his father trails behind him in the forest. Suddenly, Thomas sparks a small light using his lighter, revealing the apocalyptic creatures lurking in the depths of the chasm with him. In the meantime, his father reaches the ravine and discovers that his son has fallen inside. Next, we witness Joseph, who deceives himself into a deep sleep using a trick, leaving his house unguarded to trick one of these creatures. He lures the creature into a trap he had set beforehand, successfully capturing it just as the creature intends to attack. In another scene, Paul ventures into the ravine and realizes that the creatures are attacking from underground. He uses dynamite to explode them, despite sustaining injuries himself. Joseph, upon realizing his father had not returned the next day, decides to go after them. Suddenly, in the middle of the forest, he sees Thomas carrying his wounded and unconscious father. Joseph helps them. They transport the father to the house with the car. Thomas suggests they go to the Rose family, who have a farm and might have medicine. While taking care of his father, Thomas notices a creature in a cage that his brother had captured for experimentation. However, Thomas releases it to kill it. Although initially intending to attack them, two brothers were forced to kill it and cut off its head. Joseph then realizes the futility of his actions. They load the father into the car and head to the Rose family farm. Upon arrival, Thomas pleads with them to shelter his father, who needs medicine, but Mrs. Rose coldly refuses, saying they have no place for him, even though he can stay. Joseph is upset by this and argues with his brother, and they start a fight before Joseph driving back with his father and leaving Thomas behind. Thomas decides to stay with the Rose family and spends all his time with Charlotte. They have dinner together. Then, in the room while talking, they get closer and accidentally kiss. Charlotte's father witnesses this and tells his daughter to leave the room. Later, we see Joseph bringing the father back home alone. Away from Charlotte's sight, Thomas is in the kitchen looking for medicine, which Charlotte notices. She asks what he is searching for, and he replies that his father is sick and needs medicine, asking for help. Charlotte, contrary to her father's wishes and knowing it could bring trouble for her, helped Thomas and gives him a package of medicine. Thomas quickly tries to escape but is stopped at gunpoint from behind by the others on the farm. Even though he protests that he didn't steal and Charlotte gave him the medicine, they arrest him. Then a scene is shown where Joseph realizes that these creatures have infiltrated their home and will soon launch a massive attack. Meanwhile, Thomas, who had been captured by the farmhands and was about to be shot with a gun, at that moment an explosion occurs, causing the attackers to stumble and fall. Subsequently, the creatures begin their assault, invading Mr. Rose's home and attacking him and his wife, leading to a situation where a lighter from Mr. Rose's hand falls and ignites a fire. The creatures engulf them while their daughter remains unaware until it's too late. As the creatures rampage everywhere, just before they attack Thomas, Charlotte intervenes, shooting at them with a gun and saving Thomas. Thomas wanted to leave and help the people inside Charlotte's home, but Charlotte insists that her parents are gone, so they all decide to return to the house. Upon arrival, they talk to Joseph and explain the situation. Then they seek out their father, Paul, and inform him that the creatures are emerging from beneath the house. Now conscious, Paul instructs them to fight until the last moment. Together, they set up a calculated plan involving explosive materials and gasoline to gather the creatures in one place and ultimately detonate them. With teamwork, they eliminate several of the creatures while Paul also assists them. Many of the creatures set up an ambush, but at a critical moment, Paul tells them to proceed and set up a counter-ambush. Meanwhile, he reminisces about his children's childhood, stands still, luring the creatures towards him, and activates the trap and sacrifices himself, causing an explosion that eliminates them all. The boys with Charlotte find refuge somewhere. When everything settles down, they realize that their father sacrificed himself and his gone. They flee from there, getting into a car, while a flaming mass of these creatures resembling burning tires follows them. Charlotte finally manages to eliminate them with successive shots, ultimately bringing them to safety. They mourn their lost parents briefly, and Joseph and Thomas are also saddened by the loss of their father. They all drive off together, embarking on a new chapter of life where they might be able to start anew.